What's up, folks? This is Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. And today I'm going to do a little bit of a channel update as well as a character build with the Marvel Multiverse RPG. So as far as the channel update goes, it's amazing how much this channel has grown for what I was expecting.
Takes us a while to get any traction, I'll give you that one.
So to be at 1481 right now was way more than what I thought I would be. Yes! That being said, this isn't quite a job yet. I only make about $30 a month on ad revenue from my YouTube channel, and unfortunately, that ad revenue is my source of income right now, as my employer decided to eliminate my position last week before I left on vacation. The day before I left on vacation.
I don't want to tell him what a cheap, lying, no good, rotten, four-flushing, low-life.
A few moments later.
Where's the Tylenol?
But I'm not bitter. I actually think this is probably for the best. I'm going to be able to find a position with a company that is going to better fit the needs of my family, that I'm going to be a better fit for them. You see, the company I was with for the last 4 years, I managed 13 credit union branches, and along with that came a lot of headaches, a lot of late night calls, early morning calls, calls on the weekends, calls on holidays, alarms going off, so on and so forth. So I'm looking for something a little less stressful. That being said, with the change, it could impact my schedule for video uploads. You noticed last week was a little bit odd that I had 2 videos that were both very short. That was because my family and I went on vacation, as I mentioned. We went to Disney World. And so I did a couple of quick videos before we left, right after I found out that my job was no longer going to be there for me when I got back, despite 4 years of great reviews and a huge raise a couple of months ago. When I told them I wasn't looking to move up, they told me I could hit the door.
You serious, Clark?
But going forward, I'm going to look at this as an opportunity to put a little more focus into some of my videos, perhaps, until I find something else, and also to interact with you more in the chat. So please do comment. I do appreciate the dialogue. Please keep it positive, though. Want to have some good discussion, but if we are just going over the same topic over and over again, you've said your point, I've said mine, there's no point to rehash it. So that all being said, let's jump into a character build for my favorite character.
I'm Batman.
That won't work though, because this is Marvel. And, with Marvel, my favorite character would be...
Tonight's winner and still king of the cage, the Wolverine.
But there is an option. So let's build Darkclaw. In this video, I'm going to show you 2 different ways to build Darkclaw. I'm going to show you the full method, which is how you could build any character, and then I'm going to show you a shortcut that you can use to modify existing characters into what you want them to be. But for starting with the full method, I've already got his name, which is Logan Wayne, his code name, which is Darkclaw, height, weight, hair, size, distinguishing features, where he's from, so on and so forth. Now, with all that out of the way, the steps in the book are very simple. There are 5 of them. So the first step that you are going to use is to determine the rank. And I'm going to make Darkclaw a rank 4 character. Partially that is because Wolverine is a rank 4 character, and Darkclaw is essentially Wolverine with Batman's logic and detective skills. So I could have ranked him up just based on the fact that he's basically a better Wolverine, but I wanted to keep him in that rank 4 category because I want him to better match up with some of the available enemies and also have the potential to run him as part of a group and still have something left to fight that's already pre-built for me. Now, rank also determines your damage classes for the different types of damage that you can do, as well as how many powers you're going to get, how many ability score points you're going to get to distribute, and how many extra traits you're going to get. So rank is a big deal. You can look at rank as like a tier of power. The way that it works as far as balancing goes is a hero should be an even match with a villain of their rank. They would also be a close to even match with 2 villains of the rank before them or 4 villains of 2 ranks underneath them. That being said, if I wanted Darkclaw to pair up with, say, Wolverine, another rank 4 hero, then those two together could evenly fight a rank 5 villain or a rank 5 hero that is out of control, such as the Hulk. So having it in that rank 4 class gives me a few more options. Now for step 2, we are going to get the ability scores. Now by default, you're going to get 5 times your rank in ability score points to distribute. There is a cap equal to 3 plus your rank. So as a rank 4 hero, Darkclaw is going to have a cap of 7 as his highest possible ability score. Now keep in mind, these can be added to later if you have extra powers that you don't use for anything else. Powers can be used to buy powers, extra traits, or add to ability scores on a one-for-one basis. So what I have here as a starting point is the 20 points as they were laid out for the regular Wolverine. Now I know I'm going to want a higher logic and ego score than what is here right now, but I am going to start out with the 20 points for Wolverine because I don't think anything is going to be lower than what Wolverine had, and then I will use some powers to offset that to raise the scores that I want. But for right now, you look at his melee score, which handles his melee attacks and melee defense. This also adds to, you add 10 to an attribute to come up with the defense score of that attribute, and the attribute itself is the bonus that you roll for any skills involving that ability. So my defense for agility is 12, and I get a +2 on, say, acrobatic attempts, or also to shoot a bow or throw a batarang. Then I have my resilience, which is going to be important because it's also going to determine how much health I get. And I have a 5 in resilience because Wolverine is very, very resilient, as is Darkclaw, which gives him a 15 defense score. That might be used to, say, resist a poison, and a +5 to non-combat checks, maybe for seeing if you can drink and not become intoxicated, for example. Vigilance is important because it helps determine your focus points, which are kind of your mental hit points, but they're also a resource that you use to pay for certain powers that you may use. So it also adds to your initiative bonus. So for right now, I get a +4 to initiative, and keep in mind that a 1 is like an average human level. So a 4 is very good to account for Wolverine's very high initiative. Right now, I've got an ego of 1, which gives me a defense score of 11 there, and a +1 to ego ability rolls, and a logic score of 1, which gives me an 11 defense and a +1 to logic ability score rolls. The next step is going to be to create the character's backstory. Now, backstories are going to encompass their occupation, their origin, and also any extra traits or tags that they have. Tags tend to be more narrative-focused things, like he's rich, or maybe he has a ward. Whereas traits tend to be more mechanical things, and they are restricted on how many you get. You can have as many tags as you want, but traits you're going to have to pay for. Typically, whenever you get an occupation, that's going to give you 2 to 3 traits that you can add to your character sheet for free. And then when you pick your origin, that's going to give you some tags that you have to take along with that origin. So first off, I'm going to pick my origin. And as you can see, there's lots to choose from. But I think the most natural for Wolverine, and therefore the Darklaw, is going to be Mutant. So I'm going to choose Mutant, which is going to give me the tags of Hounded, Krakoan, and X-Gene. Next up, I'm going to choose my occupation, and for that, I'm going to choose Investigator, because what the Darklaw currently is the world's greatest detective. And so with that, he's going to automatically get the trait Connections Police and the traits Interrogation and Investigation. These basically all give the hero an edge, which is what most traits do, give them an edge in specific situations, and trouble in other situations. Edges are the equivalent of 5e advantage, whereas troubles are the equivalent of 5e disadvantage. Now, while I'm in this section, I'm going to go ahead and choose my extra 4 traits, because as you recall, you get an extra trait per rank of your character. Since I'm a rank 4, I get 4 extra traits. And for those extra traits, I'm going to choose Inventor, Scientific Expertise, Sneaky, and Abrasive. And the reason I've chosen the traits that I have is because I felt like they were ways to represent aspects of the character that were otherwise not represented in what I have or what I have planned. Now, there were other traits that I looked at very closely, like Battle Ready, or Combat Expert, or Combat Reflexes, or Famous, and all of those would have been appropriate too. But you only get so many points to distribute, and I feel like the aspects of the character that those traits would have represented could be just as easily represented by his ability scores, or also his tags, which are free, or his powers. So that's why I went with Inventor, Scientific Expertise, Sneaky, and Abrasive for his extra traits. While I was in this section, I added some additional tags. Tags are free. They don't give a mechanical benefit, but they do give some narrative benefit. So for my tags, I chose Headquarters, Rich, Secret Identity, and Streetwise. All seemed appropriate for the Darklaw. Now, with that said, there were plenty of other options that I could have chosen that would have been just as viable and just as accurate. But these are the ones that I chose at this time. And now we're on to power selection. And there are a ton of them. I keep hearing people talk about how they don't like the power selection here for the Marvel Multiverse RPG. I just don't see it. There are tons and tons of different options, and when you consider that you can reskin any of them to mechanically do the same thing with just a different flavor, you can pretty much do anything that you can imagine with just what is here. Now, the way that these are laid out, there are different power sets, and those sets are going to have different options within them. And the sets right now are Elemental Control, Illusion, Magic. Within Magic, there's subsets. Martial Arts, Melee Weapons, Omniversal Travel, again, subsets within there. Phasing, Plasticity, Power Control, Ranged Weapons, Resize, Shield Bearer, Spider Powers, Super Speed, Super Strength, Tactics, Telekinesis, Telepathy, Teleportation, and Weather Control. Now, you get 4 times your rank in powers to start with, and then you get a bonus for staying in a limited number of power sets. The bonus number of powers that you get is your rank minus the number of power sets that you drew your powers from, not including the basic powers, which are not part of any power set. So, for example, Darklaw is going to be a rank 4. He gets 16 powers by default, then 4 minus the number of power sets that he has chosen from for his bonuses. For my character, I have powers chosen from the basic set, which don't count against the sets, martial arts, and melee weapons. So that is 2 additional power sets, so I get 4 minus 2, or 2 additional powers, bringing my total powers to 18. Now for Dark Claw's powers, I wanted to start out with powers that Wolverine currently had. So I took Brawling, Combat Trickery, Healing Factor, Heightened Senses, Iconic Weapon Claws, Reinforced Skeleton, Attack Stance, Grappling Technique, Fast Attacks, Hit and Run, and Riposte. Now, along with those, because Dark Claw is mentioned in the fluff to be able to lift like 12 men, then I gave him Mighty 2 and Accuracy 2 because he was said to have trained with Hawkeye in his ranged attacks. So, with all of that added in, you might say, if you are familiar with the rules, why would you take Mighty 2 and Iconic Weapon? Because Iconic Weapon gives him a +1 to his combat damage multiplier with his claws, but then Mighty 2 gives a +2, and you only use the higher of the two. Well, because the claws give the narrative benefit of being able to cut through things, and also they allow for use of his melee weapons powers, whereas without that he would have to have a weapon on him. Also, if there is ever a time where he loses his mighty ability, maybe from a poison or a character taking away that power, then he still has the claws as a backup option. So that would be why I took both of those. At this point, it seems worthwhile to mention that the power section goes from page 81 to page 131, offering a huge amount of options for your character. That being said, I've got my powers for the Dark Claw written down on my character sheet, and now we are ready for step 5. For step 5, I need to do some calculations. For my health, that is going to be 30 times my resilience, which is 150. Some traits and powers can affect this, but 150 is going to be what I've got. For damage reduction, typically that would be 0, but as I have a reinforced skeleton, that's -1. That means whenever players roll their damage against me, their multiplier is reduced by 1. For focus, that's kind of my mental health and the energy that I use to power my power sets. That is going to be 30 times my vigilance score, so that would be 120. And for my damage reduction there, it is nothing because I don't have anything there. Karma, those are kind of like hero points, and you get 1 per rank, so I've got a 4. My speed, the default is a 5, and then if you have a 5 in agility, you get to add 1 to it, but I don't, so it's a 5. The climb and swim speed are each going to be half of your regular run speed, and that is in 5-foot square measurements. So 5 is actually 25 feet. My initiative modifier is going to be a 4 because that is my resilience score. Now, getting into damage. Your damage multiplier is going to be, by default, your rank. So as a rank 4 hero, I'm going to have a multiplier of 4. And then the bonus is going to be the skill associated with that. And that is going to be based on your attributes here. Now, for the Dark Claw, I have 2 powers that add to this. Mighty 2 adds 2 to my melee, and Accuracy 2 adds 2 to my agility attacks. So for my melee, I would have a ×6 multiplier plus 7. It is important to remember that these are non-combat checks over here. You only add the actual ability score to the damage. So then with my agility, it would be 6 times the number plus 2 for my agility score. And then for ego, it would be based on my ego score, which is going to be raising, which I should tell you about right now. Because I saved some powers, I am able to put those into my ability scores. So I went ahead and added one more to my ego, making it a 2, and my defense a 12, and my non-combat check a +2. For my logic, I added 2 to that, which makes my logic defense a 13 and a +3 to my non-combat logic checks. That also applies down here to the damage, where my ego is going to be ×4 and then +2 now, because that is where my ego is at. And then my logic is ×4 +3, because that's where my logic is at, rather. Okay, so then you may notice that my agility defense is now listed as a 17, where it should be a 12, because you normally add 2 or 10 to the ability score, and my agility is still a 2. However, I took the brawling power, which allows me to use my melee ability against agility attacks for defense. So my defense score for agility is now a 17. And that is a finished character going the long route. Right now I have the Dark Claw built. I did put in some additional notes that he always carries batarangs, which are ranged weapons. He has access to transportation, and he has the aspect of a fish out of water in Earth 616 because he's actually from the Amalgam universe. But with this said, there is a section here for team maneuvers, which I'm not going to define right now because I'm not going to have him start in a team. But with this, I have everything that I need to play the character. Now, on the back side of the character sheet, you have some additional space for powers if you have more, and additional space for traits and tags, or you could actually put maybe a sidekick here. And you could put your portrait here. But that is the long method. Now, let me show you the quick method. In the narrator section on chapter 10, it actually gives you the mechanical attributions for ranking up or down. So anytime you go up or down a rank, you are going to change by 5 ability points, 1 trait, 4 powers. Their damage multipliers are going to go up or down based on their up or down ranking. They're going to get an extra karma if they go up, or 1 less if they go down. And then there can be additional changes based on the choices you make at that point. So this is actually handled very well in the narrator section. It talks about why you might want to do this, how you can do this to adjust your game, and how you can use it to make combats more interesting and more balanced. But in our case, we could use this to use the existing Wolverine, and we could rank him up 1, make him a rank 5, and then just add in the ability points and the powers and the traits to make him the Dark Claw. Now, he would be a little bit more powerful than the one that I built, but it would be much quicker, and it would give you the full Wolverine experience. I took away a lot of Wolverine's more berserkerish traits and powers because it mentions in the fluff that Dark Claw was actually removed from the Weapon X program because he was too controlled, had too much of a conscience. So I take that as him being less raging than Wolverine. So if you wanted to keep Wolverine and just bump him up to make the Dark Claw, you would have to add 5 ability points, 1 extra trait, 4 extra powers, and then you would be good to go. You would add 1 more karma too. But that would be a very, very quick way to level up or down any of the characters shown in the core rulebook. In case you were wondering, Wolverine was towards the end of the section on characters, and Abomination is the beginning. So you've got about 130 pages of full spread character descriptions with stats. You've got an absolute ton of variety and a lot of different options to use in your game right out of the core rulebook. And that was character creation for the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate your support, and I just can't believe that we're creeping up on 1,500 subs now. This started as just a fun little hobby to do with my son, and I really appreciate that so many people seem to enjoy my videos. It does mean a lot to me. So until next time, this has been Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. Good gaming, and God bless.